Hello everyone. Today we're going to look at using more than one class inside of our Windows Form application here. So where we left off last time was with a grid view that allowed us to click reserve book and return book, and we were interacting with our book class. Strictly just our book class. We had reserve book and return book built into this class. We were able to click is available and toggle that feature. Well, today we're going to dive into a little bit deeper of code. We're going to remove that functionality that we built earlier, which was to toggle the is available book part. We're going to build a new class that meets a better requirement of we have individual copies being covered by one class, and then we just have basic information in the other class. So here we have the book, and we're gonna just leave the single responsibility of the book class to just describe the type of books that are available. And then here in our library book class, we are going to explore actually keeping track of individual copies of that book. And so by splitting up these responsibilities, we get much more dynamic code. And then from there, we're going to build another class that manages those two classes. We're going to call this the LibraryBook class. And then we'll still be using our user form GUI, our graphical user interface, to bring all of that data in front of the user in a visible, easy to digest manner. So here I've added this grid view with library book. This is going to show us all the library books that we have. So the first thing we're going to do, we've already deleted all the book code that we've used that we're going to rewrite in a much more dynamic fashion. So the first thing I want to do is define our library book class. So here we're going to have ID. This is for the future. This is for database lookups. Now we're going to use this copy number property, and this is going to be it's going to be if you only have one book of one type, like say you only have one book of Catcher in the Rye, then copy number will be 1. But if you have 10 books, then we're going to have 10 entries for that specific book, and it's going to be stored here. Our book class is just going to mention it once, but we're going to have it mentioned multiple times here, and that creates much more dynamic code. We can do a lot more things with that, and we'll get into the details of what it is, but separating that code makes working with the code later on down the line a lot easier. So that's what we're going for here. I'm just going to write a little comment here to remind us of what this is doing for us. Now we're going to pull that get available, is available Boolean that we had in the book class. We pull it into the library book because that information will get stored and each physical copy of the book, which makes a lot more intuitive sense. If this is what's storing the physical copies of our book, then it's pretty easy to say, okay, that person has that book, it's not available. So just write another note for us. Tells us if the book is available or not. And then we're going to also bring in our our book because a library book has to be some type of book. And then we're going to build our constructor, which initializes our book here. This should be capitalized. Library book, autocomplete book. So our constructor is going to take in a book. That's the basic information of the book. And we're going to default to this is available. And in the future, we're going to have to develop a way to work with ID and copy number, but for now, we're just going to let there be an infinite number of the books for now. That's our assumption. And ID will be used for our database lookups in the future. But that's all we need for our library book. Now let's start building the code that's going to interface with our library book. So the first thing I'd like to do is we're going to create two lists. To save a little bit of time, I'm going to copy paste the code that I have written here. So our first list is just going to store all the library books that are currently for that specific user of the GUI. So the person that's interacting with the program, we're going to store all of that, all of those books that we make, all the physical, tangible copies of it. And then we're also going to use all of the available books. This is more abstract. Here's all the possible books that they could be. Do we have physical copies of them? Maybe, maybe not. It just depends. But that's how we're going to differentiate these two. And then I'm going to keep copying and pasting code because this is a little bit of repeat of last time. So this is just initializing my book. This is what's going to appear in my grid view. This is what's going to appear to the user. These are the available options of books to check out. And these just represent the possibilities. It's more of a, here's all of the books that could be checked out, but we don't necessarily know anything about the physical copies that are available at the library. This is just here's what's available. And then this class is also going to handle that reserve functionality that we built earlier. We're going to pull that out of the book class, and we're not going to put it in library book. We're going to put it in this class that's going to manage all of that. And so the intent here is these two are more of our data capturing devices we have. And at the end of the day, this will be our database tables. We have a book. This has certain information just about general book information. Library book, that table will have more specific information about a particular copy of a book. And then we have a class designated to interact with these two classes. And by doing that, we create much more dynamic code. The code it's much easier to extend. It's a lot more flexible doing it this way. And it's a little bit difficult to explain how until we really start writing the code, why that is. But I'm just going to leave it off for there and continue forward with our code. So here we have the reserve book function. This reserve book function, in the future, it's going to be bringing in a user, but for now we haven't added the user. We are just bringing in this library book, and we want to first we want to see if it's available. In this case, we have an infinite number of books, so all of them will be available, but we are still going to handle each individual case of a book. Remember, this class is saying, here's a new physical copy of a book. And then once the person reserves the book, we're going to add that to our list here. And then that's going to show up on our grid view. So that's what our reserve book function is doing here. Keep in mind, it's taking in the book class. So in our original grid view here, we're still looking at just regular information about the book. Once the user clicks on, I want this book, then we go look to see on our shelf, our bookshelf, what books are available. And then we grab that book, and then we say, okay, there's our library book. There's our book, that physical book that's available. And we're going to say it's no longer available because we're lending it out to someone. And we're going to add it to this list. We're going to keep track of that information. Now, how do we manage returning the book? Here, we are going to let the user, once again, the user will look at this table and see that they're able to return that specific book that they know of. And we're using the book class here to keep our code mostly flexible. And here we have something called language language integrated query. This is a for loop. This is basically a for loop that's just going to look through this list of books here and find that specific book that we found. And it's going to pull that library book. It's going to look, we're looking through the list of general information about books to find that specific copy. And then we're going to pull that off of the list and set that book to be available again. So this is all of the code that we need to write in our classes here. And we have our library books, we have our book manager, and then we have a much more trimmed down version of book. And the last thing we want to do is write the code that we need to run this program. So in our next video, we'll cover how do we add these new classes to and interact with them on our GUI. So we'll cover that in our next video. For now, thanks for watching and take care.